Welcome to this published author show. My name is Kenneth Muyingo, and with me I have a special guest that I will be interviewing. First, I just want to mention, if you watch this interview and you would like to write a book yourself, to become an author and write your first book, there's a link with this interview for you to join the group, become an author and write your first book, to connect with like-minded people who are doing the same. And with that said, I would like to get into the interview by asking my guest to say hello to our viewers and listeners and to introduce himself.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, Micheal Keene is the name, not my legal name, it's my pseudonym name. But I write two different types of stories, and therefore I keep the names quite separate so I don't get confused. Right, let's see. There we are, got you up now. I was blocking you out on the screen, sorry.
All right.
I've been an author now for 10 years. And my very first book 10 years ago, when authors had to submit 3 chapters to the publisher, I hit 22 publishers with the first book, and I got the no-go from all of them, except that that wasn't really true, because this is just a bit of light-heartedness now.
Yeah.
I would, instead of putting page 17 where page 17 should be, I'd put it somewhere 27, say.
Yeah.
And if the manuscript came back in the same position, you knew they didn't even read them.
Yeah.
So that was my initiation test. But suddenly I had an email from a publisher, said, read your book once, read it twice, can't put it down, want to meet you, we'll come and see you, we want to sign a contract within the week. So to all those listening, all would-be writers and authors, hang in there, because that's what sometimes happens. It's a long route to get published, and at the end of the day, I think, to be absolutely honest, all I want to do is write, but not necessarily get involved with I don't know, all the admin hoo-ha that goes on. So I'm going to go straight into not my first book, because that's, say, 10 years old now. But I elected to select a book which is called For the Love of Tom.
For the Love of Tom.
Yeah. And it's based on a 1914-18 wartime novel. Fine, okay.
Yeah.
And it's a very, to me, it's my best book I've written. Okay, so that's why I chose it. But if I get invited back again, obviously I pick something else. But
Do you have a copy of it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Very nice. For the Love of Tom.
Yeah.
Amazing. A wartime novel. Amazing. And you mentioned that you have been writing for 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a wealth of experience.
Yes.
Somebody is watching this and they would like to know more about you, Micheal. What can you share with them? How did you get into writing?
Well, it's a bit of a dramatic story. Unfortunately, my wife was dying, and I don't want everybody to go, that was 10 years ago, I've lived with it. But I had a really black hole I was living in.
Ah,
And excuse me, I had to find something to occupy my mind.
yeah,
And the first book that I wrote, in actual fact, was an interview with a leisure centre out in France, and it was an amazing story from the guy I was filming. I was making a documentary. That was my work.
yeah,
And he had such an interesting life that I spent 10 years, believe it or not, before I could retire, so that I could do justice to this book.
yeah,
And once again, it's one of those things where I really work with people, and that's the other book.
yeah,
Fine. So my writing career in 10 years has been going back and really remembering the people I've met through my life,
yeah,
doing photography, and excuse me, it got to a point where I just become now, I'm just going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books in 10 years.
wow,
All published.
amazing.
Yeah, excuse me, I have a drink.
Yes, please.
So what I've set down to do, because I was a photographer, I like to do my own photography. So in other words, for the love of Tom, that photograph is mine.
Wow.
So I designed it all, and I'll tell you what in actual fact happened. I won't mention the publishers,
Yeah,
but I was foolish enough to spend some money with a very large organization, let's put it that way.
yeah,
And I had so much trouble with them that it was unbelievable, because I was finding that they were not able to send me good copy back
yeah,
after they had corrected.
yeah,
And eventually I got it right, and they got it right, so I thought. And when I got my complimentary 15 books, there were 17 mistakes still in the book.
wow.
And that cost me £2,000. So that was my experience. Now, having said that, I then found a publisher that took the book on,
Yeah,
and has since then become my publisher, Green Cat Books.
wow.
And they've revamped it, put it right, and I don't know, I could have given up at one stage, because so anybody who's listening to us, don't give up. You fight the system. In other words, within the book, I write about one of the characters that in actual fact was just about to be called up to go into war, because it's the 1914-18 war. And he had been with girlfriends up until that stage, and the actual publisher told me that I couldn't use the word girl in the book, if in actual fact he was having a love affair with her.
Yeah.
So I had to convince them that the age of consent was 12 years of age in those days. So, you know, but he was with a young lady. She was much older than that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that go on, which once you've started writing, you get so absorbed with what you're doing that sometimes I find myself, and probably other authors do, trying to write out of the problems that they could see that they're going to get with the publisher. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Indeed.
And that is wrong, because an author should have a nice free flow of work. He should be able to argue his point afterwards, but never, never, never try and change an author's work. But it's one of the things that you have to live with. But once you've convinced a publisher that you write well, then you're away. But it takes a long time to find a publisher. I'm not going to say don't go and spend money to get your book on the market. I'm a great believer that you should stay with a traditional publisher. There is nothing more exciting than holding your book or going into the bookshop, as I do, and take take the book out of the shelf, out of everybody else's view, and that gives you a lot of pleasure. It is worth more than money. Not really, but you know what I'm saying.
It is a good feeling.
Yeah. So that's my advice is to anybody that is beginning at this very moment, is to not give up. It is a lot easier than 10 years ago, where you had to send 3 chapters of your work. You now, obviously, over the net, you just send off your work and they have it in its entirety. And they can read the whole book. And I don't know, it's very enjoyable. To me, I write about people, as I said earlier, and I, in actual fact, have a very strong support of the gay press. In other words, stories, because I think there are so many bad ones out there. And in actual fact, this isn't to just boost myself, it's just a mere fact, I think I can write better than all the ones that I dislike. So I write about love and not bring it into pornography. Because I believe that you can have a relationship of the same gender and you can be happy. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of situations in the world. So I have a smaller market, but at the same time, I keep a lot of people happy with a good story, a love story, sooner than a pornographic story. Right? So, but if I chose to go the other side, I could probably make a lot more money. I don't know. I'm not bothered. So I choose that subject mainly because I worked as a photographer in the fashion world and met lots and lots of gay people. And I just will tell you a funny story. When I'm doing a book signing, I often get asked, "Are you in the book?" And the answer is, I'd like to sort of bring out my marriage certificate and photographs of my children, but I just say, no, 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 no. If I was a photojournalist and I was sent out to Vietnam to cover a war, that doesn't make me a soldier.
Ah.
And that just kills everybody stone dead.
Yeah.
They don't ask any more questions.
That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. It took a long time to write that. But to go into the book, if I may.
Yes.
Unless there's something you'd like to ask me any more about my life, please do now, and then I'll go into the book.
Let's talk about the book.
Okay. It's really about two families, one rich and one poor, a farming family and a high-tech family. And the war came about, and Brian, who is the main character, is called up, and he gets sent out to France in the middle battle with the Germans in the trenches, and led an awful life for several months, knee deep in water, mud, slime, everything. And he wasn't aware of his sexuality at that particular stage. It didn't bother him, right, fine. The war bothered him. And there was a particular period where, in actual fact, a bombing session from the Germans was so heavy that, in actual fact, he found himself clutching another guy for, I don't know, fear. It certainly wasn't love or any emotional. It was just fear, total fear. But there was something at that particular stage that made him feel good about it. The bombing continued, and they unfortunately got parted. And the story is about the two of them trying to find one another after the war. Because sexuality or homosexuals were put in prison, in actual fact, in those days. So they had a very difficult thing on their hands. In other words, they were fighting for their country and their freedom, but in actual fact, they were now going to have to try and find one another, because they knew that there was something that brought them together, there was a chemistry there, and they had to find out. So the story is about them trying to find one another, and the way I've written the book, and this is something I hope is interesting for people that are compiling a book, writing a book. I don't start off with them in the war zone, in the trenches. I don't give the story away. I give the opening chapter to Brian, which is a character, coming home from war and surprising his mother, who lived through the war on her own, because she'd lost her husband and his father. And it's about him trying to live peacefully again after the war. And he had this nightmare that was constantly sort of going around in his head all the time, about what had happened in the trenches and the explosion. And he had this absolute desire to find Tom. So for people writing books, don't necessarily, if they were writing about how the two met.
Yeah.
I bring that in a bit later in the book,
Yeah.
sooner than at the beginning.
Indeed.
So, and I also wanted them, both these two guys, to find one another in a nice way, the nicest possible way. And in those days, and this all, my father was telling me this, believe it or not, because he was in that war.
Oh.
So there was a lot of information that came from him.
Yeah.
And you do live with memories for a long time, and eventually that book comes out of those memories.
Yeah.
And I quite enjoy it because you don't really have to do too much research. And I would find it very difficult to have to write a book that took about 3 years to research it, of getting all the facts and figures right.
Yeah.
These are just nice love stories, basically. To introduce two people together, doesn't matter whether they're homosexuals or whether in actual fact heterosexuals, the chemistry, and I'm not going to ask you if you're married and so forth, so don't worry, but if it's that magical feeling, you know the person you want to settle down with.
Yeah.
Fine. So it's no difference
Indeed.
in gender between the two. It's the same reaction, the same feelings, the same emotions. So I go into the heads of the people, of my characters, and I write about their emotions and their feelings and so forth. And I get asked sometimes, how do you know if in actual fact you don't live that lifestyle?
Yeah.
Well, there is no difference. There is absolutely no difference. This is the thing.
Yeah.
Love is love. When those two people find love together, there is no difference between the two.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to write about it because there's a chemistry that happens. And if you can get that into your book when you're writing, and I certainly have got it into there, I don't leave any blank pages. If I'm not going to go into great depths on this one, but I'm a writer that doesn't leave a blank page, as I put it.
Yeah.
There is nothing worse than somebody to read a book, in my view this is, to read a book and get to an exciting part, only to turn the page to find that the next page is blank. Yes. Yeah. So if they are in actual fact about to make love, fair enough, then fair enough. Don't leave the reader guessing that they're going to. You don't necessarily have to take them in the same room or location, whatever, or actually be part of it. But in actual fact, you don't sort of leave them. You just know now that when you turn that page, they are in actual fact going to make love, full stop. Whether you're brave enough to explain it in detail, that's up to the author. But you have to leave things to the reader's imagination as well. You can't take everything away from the reader.
Indeed.
They have to put something in this. In other words, you write the story, and you. I love teasing people in the book. They think they've got the ending coming, but in actual fact, no. And I don't give any games away here, because some books, you can pick it up about 2/3 of the way through the book, what the ending is or what the plot is and so forth. But I like changing the plot. People that suddenly think they've got it. And maybe the enthusiasm disappears a bit, But when they read on, they find, oh, I got that wrong. You know,
Yeah.
they've got to go on. You know, in other words, you build up the excitement in the book.
It is. That keeps the suspense while reading, most definitely.
Yeah, yeah. I can actually tell the story of the book. What in actual fact happens is that I wanted them to meet, as I said earlier, in a very pleasant and respectful way.
Yeah.
It wasn't sort of love at first sight. There's so much goes on in the book between these two when they meet. They find one another and they meet. They don't really know how to approach it because they're not gay. They're not sure. They're not, you know, they're really fighting for some help. But they couldn't turn to anybody. They couldn't turn to their parents. That wasn't on. They couldn't mention it. You know, they couldn't go and have a drink in a pub and show affection. You know, touch of the hand, whatever. I mean, you know, you were locked up. no arguments.
Indeed.
Fine. So the book is full of I don't know, emotional situations where you think the reader hopefully thinks, this is it. This is where they're, and then no, it's on the next chapter.
Yeah. You have to keep reading.
Yeah. And I hang this out, and it's a bit frustrating sometimes, you know, for me as the writer. I want to tell the readers that all is well, but I want to hang that back as long as possible and tantalize them. And what actually happens in the book is that I introduce a third party. It's somebody that Brian meets before he actually ties up with Tom. And because the guy is gay, he thinks, oh, well, you know, I can learn a lot from this guy. Not that he particularly wanted to be with him, but at least he knew that he could speak to him about them. So I take that character and put him in the middle of the book, and how he, in actual fact, lives his life. Well, in those days, the very rich people used to have huge parties in huge houses, and masses of gay people all are there, and so forth. Fine. Now, I didn't want Tom or Brian, my two main characters, to be part of that scene. So I introduced the third party, which then explains all about what the life is about, or not necessarily in great depth, but, you know, it gives enough information to say that's what happened in that time period, 1914, 18, around that period. So when I bring Brian and Tom together, they are nice guys. They are squeaky clean. Yeah, it's the only way I can say it, you know. Now they have to test one another. Was this embrace that they had in the trenches a sign of their sexuality, or was it just something that it would happen to anybody? And it took them, it takes the reader so long to find out, and it's very frustrating for them, which makes it exciting. When will they get together? When? Come on, you know. And it's things such as I don't know, they're very small things. Neither of them want to make the first move because they're not sure. They don't want to lose a friend. And Tom has had a leg injury from the war, and they'd gone for a walk, and they come back, and they were sitting in the gardens of Brian's home, and he took his Tom took his shoe off and started rubbing his foot. Now, I know this sounds very silly, but in actual fact, it's true. It happens. Brian is then tempted to take Tom's foot and actual fact massage it himself. And that was the very, very first time that they became not intimate, but they touched one another, and there was an electricity there. And so I build my book up for the reader and myself, because if I don't enjoy the book whilst I'm writing, it doesn't go anywhere.
Indeed.
No, I can write for, let's say, 4 hours, go away and have a coffee, and I come back and I sit down and read what I've just written, and I think, did I really write that? Where did that come from? So I have to enjoy my story as much as the reader. So in the end, the battle really is between them fighting the system, what society thinks about them, and Brian, who is lives on the farm, is the poor family. When he breaks the news to his mother, she already knew. She was one step ahead of him right the way through. And he had to tell his sisters and so forth, fine, okay. But the other reverse side of it for Tom himself, who now comes from the rich family, they played the game wrong. They decided to go up to stay at his place, at Tom's place, because his parents were going to be away on holiday. And this is the only time now I let the reader into it, into how they interrelate to one another. They are now in bed in Tom's house, parents' house, fine, knowing that his parents were away for 2 weeks. And unfortunately, whilst they're in bed, in actual fact, and I won't spoil the story, but there is a front door is open downstairs, and they hear footsteps up on the stairs and so forth. His parents have returned home.
Oh.
Now we have a big problem because instead of Brian, his mother, took it and sort of said, well, you're my son, I love you, whatever makes you happy, I can't interfere with your life. You fought in the war, you're now 22 years of age, oh, come on, that's it. But Tom's parents threw him out, completely out. That was it, on the spot. Don't mess, get out now, and you, and that's it. And so it's a story where all these people are trying to look badly at these two guys, but in actual fact they are in love, and that's it. Now I could give lots away, a lot more, but I want people to read the book, obviously.
Amazing story, indeed. And the way you share the story, it's just captivating. I think you share it in a very sequential way, and it just keeps the suspense of the listener, as well as if I may ask, with your experience, 10 years writing, if somebody would be watching us and they're wondering, what would you share with them are the 3 things that make a great book?
Well, I can only talk about fiction, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go and talk about writing about history, Nelson and so forth, fine, that's way beyond me, too much research. I like the emotions to come out. I think I've lived some of them, and I
Yeah.
share those. But so the three things. The first one is I hear a lot of oh, do your draft script and then change it as and when you want.
Yeah.
You know, when I sit down, I try to only have one go at it.
Yeah.
I do not, unless there is something that niggles me.
Yeah.
I'm writing a book at this very moment. Excuse me. And I'm nearly finishing it. I find that I've got to change a person's name because it gets too close to another person's name.
Yeah.
So those sort of changes, yes, you can make. So my lesson number one is to, whatever you write, first of all, change it on the day that you're writing.
Yeah.
Don't let it get to the end of the book and then you go and read it and then think, oh no, I'll change that. Oh, I didn't like that bit. You know, you either like it on the day you're writing,
Or not.
yeah, and if you don't write it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. The next stage is, obviously, you've got the book together. You need to have a second opinion. I in actual fact have got five friends in life. Very lucky. But no, seriously, 5 people that I trust. Truthfully, I will send them a script of the book that I'm just about to present to a publisher, and I'll listen to them because they are my readers, if you like.
Yeah.
And you get a lot more sense from, and I hope I'm not going to affect your career now.
No, it's all right.
But what actually happens is that most publishers put a book out to probably a student that wants to earn a quick buck to read and then give their observation of what they feel about the book.
Yeah.
I don't want my book to go to a student. No disrespect to students, but you know, I'm just using that as a framework. I want somebody that knows me,
and
they can sort of say, oh, I didn't know you were like that, or you know, oh, that was great, or oh, come on, your other book was better than that, whatever. I will then, if I have to change something, I will listen to those 5 people.
Yeah.
Unless it's a dramatic change, I won't bother. I just will say, thanks for your views. That's okay. I'll live with it. Yeah. So that's number 2 out of the way now. Yeah. Number 3 is finding your publisher. Yeah. Now this is where I'm probably treading on very delicate ground here. There is a thing called Kindle. I've got a very strong view on this one, which not everybody would agree with, but you did ask me, so I will tell you. I joke sometimes and say, if my cat, if I could teach her to type, she in actual fact could send her book in and get on Kindle.
Yeah.
There's thousands of authors out there. Fine. Yeah. And there is such rubbish sometimes that I get so annoyed that people are allowed to get into the system of being an author when I've spent 10 years and I've really, really worked at my craft. Yeah. And I've got no room for somebody that passes me at 100 miles an hour, puts their book on Kindle, and then tells me in a book club somewhere that they're an author. They've been published. Oh, hooray! You know. So I have very strong views. Yeah. A traditional publisher is is the one to go for.
Yeah.
If you're the type that is going to want to make a fortune out of writing, then fair enough. I think you have to accept that the marketplace and the way you can get your book published, you have to spend some money.
Yeah.
So you invest to reap.
Indeed.
But my real strong feelings is to be a fact that I've worked hard, 5 months, 6 months to write a book. That's me, you know. I want to make some money out of it. But at the same time, I don't want to spend any more money, because I could be doing photography, I could be doing other things. I'm an artist, whatever, fine. So I want a publisher that says, send me your book, let's have a look at it, fine, okay. So it's a long, hard trip, and it's a hard lesson to learn, but in actual fact, there's a thing called an agent that comes in between all of this. So there is no straightforward route, to be absolutely honest. You can write away and send it to someone like Kindle and Amazon and so forth, and yes, that's fine. You've got something published and people will read it if they can find it. You know, who wants to walk around with about 3,000 books in their Kindle? You know, it's unbelievable. You couldn't read that if you're going to live to 150. You know, but so the book and the bookshops need to be kept alive. The libraries need to support. And if I don't make a lot of money, I don't do it for money. I mean, I do it for the sheer love of writing. I really do. And I've got a good readership now, and there's a lot of work to be done. So going back over that, fine. Try not to sort of let your feelings change the story that you really want to write. Get it right on the day that you're writing. Don't try and finish the book, then go back and change. Do it day by day or week by week, whatever, fine. So if you have to make a change, make it there and then, and live with it. Live with it. That's you. And then, as I say, the other portions of it, as I say, it's just a mere fact you've got to work hard to find a publisher or an agent, and it is not easy. But if you want to be impatient, and there are people, I would think, out there that just want to be happy that they've been given 15 books which they paid for, if you like, and they say, yeah, I wrote that, and that's it. They go on to their next book. So the choice is theirs. I don't know if that's constructive or destructive. You tell me.
Very constructive. Thank you so much, Michael. And,
you're welcome.
Tell us about your book, the current one that you're writing.
The current one, which is very, very interesting. It's where are we? I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, well hidden.
Yeah. And then I'm writing under Micheal Keene, so it's not a gay book. So now I've got a character that I won't tell you this at the beginning, because this is the catch-22, the ending of my book. So he's a character that is living in London. He's 30 years of age. He's really fed up with the high life he's living. He's got a nice mews flat, and he thought he had lots of friends.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, he was living in a fool's paradise. He had really no friends. They were all living off of him because he was rich and successful.
Yeah.
So he decides to leave London completely, take a whole year off, and he finds and it is called a shack.
Yeah.
And it's a wooden bungalow.
Yeah.
Deep in the depths of Somerset.
Yeah.
And the story really is about when there's a lot of inbreeding goes on at certain times. I think Norfolk at one time was a county which was known for inbreeding.
Yeah.
Where so he goes down to Somerset, and he goes into the village, and he's finding it a strange atmosphere. He can't work out what it is.
Yeah.
He thinks, oh, well, it's just me being a new person in the area. Fine, you know, one of those. But people start looking like one another. So I don't bring inbreeding into the book.
Yeah.
But that's up to the person that reads the book.
Yeah.
Right? That's not up to me.
Yeah.
I'm just telling the story as it is, because
Yeah.
I'm now walking in to this village. Whilst I'm talking to you, I'm in that village now. Fine.
Wow.
And the attitude of people, some will not speak to him.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of mystery about the whole place.
Yeah.
And he looks around this shack that he's bought, or a little cottage really, but it is a shack. It's just a wooden shack, and he's not happy with what he's finding.
Yeah.
He, in actual fact, lifts up a floorboard because it was every time he'd walk past that spot, the floor moved. So he, in actual fact, thought, I'll have a look what's in there. So he finds a set of keys and some rope and all the rest of it. Fine. Wasn't too worried about it, but he's gone down into the country to take photographs of nature, flowers, the scenery, whatever. He wants to write a book somewhere about it all. But whilst he's out doing some photography one day with a long distance lens, I'm not going to get too technical now, but he gets back home and he puts all his work up on the computer, and he sees in the long distance away from where he was another shack.
Yeah.
And he thought there was nobody else he was told there was nobody else in a 5-mile forest.
Yeah.
So he now thinks, I must investigate. So the next time he goes out for the day, and he's got a dog with him, Rocky, who's his best mate. And he gets into a habit of throwing a stick for Rocky, and Rocky will bring the stick back to him again, you know, and so forth. Fine.
Yeah.
But as he's going and approaching this shack, and I don't know where all this comes from. I really don't, you know.
Yeah.
The dog comes back. Rocky comes back with not a stick, but in actual fact, it's a bone of a leg. So fear takes over the main character now. He thinks, what on earth's that? You know? So he looks around trying to get into this shack. There seems to be nobody there. It looks desolate. There's still some food on the table, and the windows are filthy and so forth. Fine. Anyhow, cut a long story short, he is walking away and he thinks, that's funny. I should have really brought those keys with me that I found under the floorboard. There must be a connection here somewhere. So next time he went, he takes the keys with him. And he looks around and he finds photographs of people that in little groups and so forth. So in other words, the place is a mess. But when he goes outside, he thinks he'll have a look around the grounds. And he's got a stick with him and he's sort of waving it around because there's a lot of undergrowth and so forth. And he's having to push his way through the bushes. But suddenly hits something very solid. And when he parts the bushes and so forth, he finds there's a well there. So the word well is the key word. Because he used to have notices put on his door. He didn't know who put them there. It just said, well, well, well. And he didn't know what that meant to him. Now he's there and he's looking down the well and he sees skeletons. And he thinks, oh my God. So he has to report this to the police. The police immediately act on that. And he's put in a situation where they believe it's him. He's concocting a story. In other words, it's such a weird place they live in, so why should he be in that shack? You know, why did he find the bones? No, he's just concocting this story, and he's trying to pass the blame onto somebody else. So he's interrogated, and eventually, and I haven't finished the book yet. So what is happening here is that when the police go and investigate the well, they find in actual fact that they are orthopedic skulls. In other words, the person that's been in the shack was obviously in the medical profession, and he had obviously skeletons there to show people how the body was built and so forth. And obviously he left and he just shut them all in the well. So the police have let him off the hook now, but of course what they put him under such a lot of pressure. And this is the punchline of the book, basically, or one of the punchlines. It's a mere fact that he's being interrogated and he's really sweating and he's had enough. And he eventually sort of puts his hand in his back pocket, flings his wallet across to the detective and says, just open it up. Because the policeman had said to him, the detective had said to him, it's about time you had a solicitor, lawyer, whatever. You want one? So he throws his wallet across there and they open it up and he's a lawyer. So he's been sitting there taking all this rubbish from the police. He's got nothing to do with, what's going on. And he's just trying to be helpful. So now I don't really know how the story is going to end now. It's either going to end at around about 185 pages, fine, or else it's going to turn out to about 300 to 500 pages, because he's now wanting to get at the police because of their incompetence, and he wants to find out what these people in the village, who are they? What are they? There's something weird. So I don't know yet. You tell me. Write to me.
Wow, wow, beautiful story. And I just like how you are very deeply descriptive, and I think you have a very active imagination, Michael.
I'm told that. Yes.
I'm curious how this story is going to end, but this was a very inspiring interview. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to know if somebody is watching this interview and would like to buy some of your books,
Yeah.
Where can they buy them?
I have two. Well, my website is www. Obviously, Micheal Keene author, all lowercase. Micheal Keene author, and Keene is KEENE .net, and they can go on there, and all the information is there. I have obviously Facebook as well. I'm on there as well, and I'm also on Twitter. So Micheal Keene, look me up. Yes, you'll find me.
Very nice. We'll put the links with the interview so that people can buy the books and also connect with you.
That's very nice. If people want to contact me, if there's, can I leave it on this note, probably, so we're rounding up. If there are new writers starting out and wish to question me more, than just not being rude to you, you know, the session is limited, but if they want to follow it up, please do.
Most definitely. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to share that we have not been able to address in the interview?
No, I don't think so. I think depends what they're writing. All right, I've just read on one of the websites, in actual fact, on Facebook, in actual fact, somebody put up, does your family read your books? And my family, I've got one grown up, so that, you know, they're grown up now, they're in 40s and 50s, as it were. Not one of my family have read my book. I get my son, who is what, 50 now, Dad, why do you write about that? You know, why don't you write about tennis or badminton, you know, whatever, fine. I say, no, you go away, fine, just read the book. Don't wait until you're burying me and the coffin's going down the ramp and you say, I'll read, oh, I didn't know he wrote it like that. So read it now, but they won't. I thought I was the only author in the world that actually was suffering that the family didn't read their books. But on this Facebook site, I have counted now over 84 authors have written in saying exactly the same thing. Their family won't read this book. It's amazing. So I don't know. It's a very lonely life, in actual fact, being an author, because you are. I try and put in about 4 or 5 hours per day. I'm retired. That's fine. Okay, I can afford the time, and I enjoy the writing. But it is very. I don't want any interruptions. I don't. You know. Just feed me with coffee and I'm okay. Yeah. So, yeah, but it's interesting. I think authors should communicate. I'm very grateful for you inviting me because and what you're doing, if I may say so, because it is very important. It's very important that you wish to associate with other authors and other writers. Not necessarily to steal information. In the photographic world, I was a photographer all of my life. Photographers wouldn't talk to one another about anything in case you gave a tip away. It's very, very secret. I'm not telling you how I did that, or I took. So I started finding that in the writing world. That people are a bit reluctant, but I'm now finding that it's not because they are trying to hold things to their chest. They are insecure. Are they on the right track? And I think what you're doing and people like yourself it's difficult for me to put it into words completely, but it's a very good job. I mean, I hope you've been at it over a year now,
Yeah.
but hope you're very successful, because to bring writers and authors together, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Michael. This was wonderful, and I'll sure be keeping in touch with you.
Lovely. Fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.